Hello and welcome to Fast Forward Newsline. My name is Michael Welch. Joining us today is Marie LeBlanc. She is a photographer, an artist, and a frequent contributor to the Community News Commons website. So thank you for joining us, Marie.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you brought to our attention an interesting new link or twist on the whole issue around suicides in northern reserves. Can you tell us a little bit about what you've seen? I believe it was on APTN?
Yeah, what I saw was that they actually linked mold illness to the suicides. It actually has a link with mental illness to do with mold, and Mike Galt is one of the people who has mold illness, and what he did was he was looking on the internet and he saw some information, and the girl who actually committed suicide, her picture was up there. He noticed that her face was swollen, and that's one of the signs to do with mold. So then he started doing some research and then found out all this information, that how it linked to mental illness and suicide. So there is a lot that people don't know, that all of a sudden now there's this link, and there's other doctors now that have found this link, but there needs to be more studies on this.
Well, that's fascinating. But of course there are a number of other health risks associated with mold. Can you talk about some of the other symptoms?
Some of them, you can get chronic inflammatory response syndrome, anything to do with inflammation. It actually can lead to death, depending what type of mold it is. Pneumonia, emphysema, clouding of the brain. Some people get rage. There's a whole bunch of things, and it's actually hard to diagnose it. But there is a doctor in the States, or several, that do the Shoemaker protocol, who actually have a way of diagnosing it through various lab tests.
So when we're talking about the mold problem, I mean, is it pretty much, is that mainly happening in reserves, or are there other people who are being impacted?
Oh, it's all over the world. It's all over the world. It doesn't matter if you're poor or you're rich. If you have a leak in your place, it's going to impact you no matter what. So it's impacting everybody, but it impacts the poor the most, because they have to deal with the medical and the fact they can't find help. They have to stay in their house and live in the toxic mold because they have nowhere else to go. Some of them are in housing that has mold, and it's nothing's being done. A lot of landlords are painting over top of the mold and not telling you about it. So if you're already exposed or have the genotype for mold, or susceptible, then you're going to have an issue if you go into a building like that.
So what are authorities, I mean, first of all, are doctors able to diagnose this accurately?
There are doctors in the States that they use the Shoemaker protocol. They diagnose it accurately. Some functional medicine doctors can. There is one doctor in Ontario, but she's booked for like the next 2 or 3 years, so it's hard to get in. And there is a doctor in Alberta, and the problem is it's very expensive. It's like, it could be $10,000 to $20,000 just to get tests done. And then you have to deal with remediation in your place, getting better, where do you find a place to live, and there's no insurance.
So people could be very sick, and the doctors may not know that mold is ultimately in the background.
Right, they wouldn't know. They would have to take a history of the person, of where they have lived, and have they ever had mold. That's what they would have to do.
Wow. So what protocols are in place for if you believe that there might be mold in your suite, say you're a renter, and like what would be put in motion? Is a bylaw inspection person comes in?
Yes. What you do is you contact the city bylaw office, and the officer will come to your place and do a visual inspection. He has no equipment with him. He just brings his camera, and it's a visual inspection. And then after that, what happens is, if you're dealing with the residential tenancies branch, if they see that there's something wrong, if they see visible mold up to a certain area, then they will either forward it to the public health or have the rentals board. Then they would issue an order and then have the rentals board have the landlord do something.
Okay. What is what's the research? What does the science suggest about what's needed, and are our standard protocols up to the task?
As
In terms of people, are we? I mean, you just mentioned that this inspection person just sort of doesn't eyeballs it and says, "Well, looks good to me," or "looks bad to me." But I mean, is that enough?
No, it's not, because there could be mold behind the walls that's not visible, and if it's not visible, they don't see it, and you can still be dying in your own home of toxic mold because it's still releasing the mycotoxins, and it's very poisonous and it can kill you.
So what are there specific tests that the research indicates is necessary in order to properly diagnose the situation?
To diagnose the mold in your house, yes, there's swabs, there's tape lifts, there's various tests that you can do. There's the air quality test, and there's the ERMI test, the environmental mold index test. And the air test doesn't always show what is actually in the air, and that seems to be what they are going by here the most, is that air test, when actually it does not show what is in your place 100%. If you had Stachybotrys, it's not, and that's the worst toxic mold you can ever get. That would be a problem if it doesn't show up on there, and then you did the ERMI test and it actually shows up, and then you're still stuck at, what do you do?
ERMI?
ERMI is the environmental, the one I just mentioned, the environmental mold index.
Okay.
Sorry.
So what about other jurisdictions? I mean, are there places abroad that are maybe more advanced in terms of dealing with the mold situation?
Well, it seems like they are in Europe. The States, in dealing with the health aspect, they're way advanced. Here, they aren't. So they take it a lot more seriously there in the States.
Okay. So what can be done if you discover there is mold? I mean, is it just a question of spraying it with bleach, or how do you kill the mold?
Depends what kind of mold it is. There's some you don't want to spray any bleach on because it'll just grow back right away. The best thing is get out of your place first. Then do the testing. That's the best thing. If you think it's mold, don't touch it, because you could be spreading the spores around, and then just and you don't know what kind of mold it is. So
just get out, take all your belongings with you, and move to another place.
Depending on what the mold is, if you have the genotype that where you're exposed to mold, and say you go to another spot, you're bringing your mold, your illness with you. So you really can't. If you have that, you have to pick up and leave. Some other people don't have to do that. But they are advising, if you do have the Stachybotrys or the Chematomium or those types of mold, is to get out like it's a fire.
Wow. Well, what can be done to mitigate or prevent or remediate situations where there's that concern about mold? What can be done to protect the residents from being exposed or worsening their situation?
Maybe have a safe place for them to go while it's getting fixed, because there's not a place. People are becoming homeless. There's not a place for them to go at this point in time. There needs to be like a safe place where they can go.
Okay. So is there a website or any other resources that you could point to where people could get more information about this situation?
Yeah, one is survivingmold.com, and you would see the protocol that Dr. Shoemaker has on there, of how he treats, and he talks about remediation and all the different things like that. There's biotoxinhealth.com and survivingtoxicmold.com, which are very good sites for information on how you can get diagnosed, and they take you through the steps. Some are medicine, some are more natural, but this is something that you need to look into. If you're finding out that your whole household has a myriad of symptoms and you can't get it diagnosed, maybe it's mold.
Marie LeBlanc, thank you very much.
You're welcome, thank you.
You've been listening to Fast Forward Newsline. A fresh edition is found right here inside this little box on a regular basis. If you'd like to be a sponsor of Fast Forward Newsline, just leave us a message at greenplanetmonitor.net. We'd like to thank the support from the Government of Canada, the Community Radio Fund of Canada, and the Social Justice Fund of Unifor. My name is Michael Welch. Bye for now.